Welcome back, everyone. We are now in our last session for today, a panel discussion. And the question is how to improve sustainability and to ensure regional independence from the global markets. And I think one answer is in building regional networks. That's what we want to elaborate today. And there are new methods of marketing regional food products, such as community-supported agriculture or direct online marketing that are spreading across Europe. And we are going to learn about the possibilities of building these networks in theory and in practice. And yeah, as always, I would like to remind you to use our Q&A tool if you like to address our speakers directly. You can also raise your hand and I will give you the permission to ask your question in our live session. And other comments and links that you would like to share, you can do that in the chat. And please keep in mind that we will record this session and it will be distributed online afterwards. So now I would really like to introduce you to our panelists. They come from diverse disciplines, and I would like to welcome Johanna Stumpner. She's a nutritional scientist and she's working for the German Association of Organic Food Processors. And her main area of work are regulatory questions on organic processing and trade, as well as the networking and representation of her association in several national and European organizations. I'm also very pleased to welcome Roos Galjaard. She's a researcher and actually working in the project Reframe. And she's also working as an advisor and EU funding officer. And the actual project of the actual objectives of the Reframe project are to develop and to re-establish local infrastructures of food production, food processing, food consumption, and short supply chains in collaboration with smart and middle SMEs in 5 European countries. Thank you for coming. Then I'm also delighted to have Wannes de Jonghe with us. He's from Belgium and he's a communication and marketing manager at Buden and Buden. That is the Belgium dependency of La Riche-qui-dit-oui from France, or in German it's Marktschwärmer. And it's a Europe-wide network that promotes short supply chains by using the principles of direct marketing and to support local producers. And also I'm very thrilled to have Tom O'Kane with us. Tom is a biodynamic horticulturalist with a postgraduate in organic farming, and he has over 15 years of experience in diverse land-based projects. And Tom is director and main grower of the K-Tan community-supported agriculture, I hope I spelled it right, based in South Wales. So thank you all for being here. And I would like to start with you, Tom. If you would like to answer to this question, how is your project contributing to a more sustainable and regional food system? What is actually happening?
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. And yeah, you did say it correctly, Kaitan. So yes, I'll basically just give you a description of the work we do, because in effect, everything we're doing is contributing to a more sustainable regional food system. So community supported agriculture, which I'm sure a lot of people know about, the very basis of it is that it's a shared risk venture. So it could be producing vegetables or meat or milk or fruit or wood, any kind of fiber. And the basic idea is that you share the risk of that production rather than it just being a producer growing it and then taking his own risks to sell it on an open market. So we are based on a peninsula in South Wales, close to a sort of fairly big town. So we've got a lot of potential members and people, and we grow vegetables all year round for 130 households. We have about another 100 households on a waiting list, so it's become like very popular. And we work with trainees. So we have trainees who train with us each year, and we've also been quite successful in setting up our trainees in their own enterprises. So as time's gone by, we're moving as much as our food production and consolidating how we produce food and trying to make that possible to produce for the whole 12 months of the year for all the households. We're also training up young people to come and set up their own projects. And then we're also mentoring and supporting them to establish new enterprises. So at the moment, we've got a few new CSAs setting up in the locality near us with our support, which is great. And this year we're starting up a training program. So we're going to set up like an online training program to introduce people across the UK to the idea of CSA and how it can work for them. And we're also working with schools and universities. So we run a school program throughout the year that basically introduces young children to seasonal food. And basically they come, part of it's practical, part of it's theoretical at school. And so we work with 5 schools throughout the year. Sadly, we haven't been able to do that during the COVID period, but just actually in the next month, we're going to restart that program. So we have a schools officer who works on that part-time. And then we have a number of university studies. So we have university groups working with us as well to study different elements of how we work, either physical or practical. And then, yeah, we're delivering a lot of mentoring and support sort of to groups across the UK, to other CSAs setting up. So yeah, that's the basis of what we do. But I'd say the fundamental basis of it is producing food from week to week with 130 households and engaging those people in how we produce the food. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just ask you the first question. You lived in the rural area of Wales and set up a new approach to economy, I would suggest, in this area. So what were the obstacles you had to face in the first years?
Yeah, there's definitely, and it's one of the things we're sort of trying to approach now with supporting new people to set up, because there are a lot of obstacles. Some of those are changing, but I can go through quickly what those main obstacles are. I'd say fundamental for us is access to land. It's very difficult to find land and actually get onto that land to start the project. Once you're there, you have problems with planning applications. So often it's very complicated with the council with dealing with planning applications and getting permission to build packing sheds and polytunnels. The setup costs. I think the setup costs for this kind of enterprise can be a lot for new entrants. So we're kind of trying to work with local government and funders to provide setup costs for people coming in, setting up new enterprises. Gaining the necessary skills, I'd say the other one is, you know, just to actually to leap into saying you're going to grow food for 100 households or 50 households or 200 households, whatever it is, you know, there's a lot of not only the basic growing skills, but just project management skills and people management skills. I think it takes quite a lot of experience before you can get to that stage to do it competently. I'd say historically the pay would be a big sort of obstacle, that actually it's really hard work and it can put a lot of pressure on the farmer and on their family. So I think actually CSA is approaching that in a different way, and it is allowing us to actually earn a decent living from it. And then I'd say bringing together the right core group of people to manage a project. So I think is kind of critical in setting up an alternative project like this, because you've got a lot of odds stacked against you, that you bring a really good group of people with you to work on it, people you trust and you know you kind of believe in, you've got the same kind of beliefs in what the project wants to deliver, and you know that you can work well with them. And then I've just got a couple more of obstacles, because I think there are a lot of obstacles. I'd say a big one is the fact that in the mainstream, food is just incredibly cheap. like food is just far too cheap in a lot of supermarkets. So that's you're really up against it starting there. And then I'd say finding regional support and advice, which it is there. There's actually a lot of it there, but I think again, when you're starting up, you don't know exactly who to go to ask for support and advice. And finally, I'd say just confidence. I think just knowing that actually, just taking the risk and saying, oh, well, actually, I think this could work. I'm just going to have a go at it. And I know for me, there was a lot of years when I didn't do it, when I probably actually did have an opportunity to set something up. So I think it's just pushing ahead, even if you're not totally sure what you're doing, just having the confidence to just go ahead and do it. So yeah, I'd say that's the obstacles, the main ones, I'd say.
Thank you. Roos, I would like to know about your project. You developed a large range of tools to facilitate regional networks. Would you like to describe what was the aim of the project and what are the most promising approaches to you?
Thank you for that question, Johanna. Yeah, so maybe it's good to say first that as a project manager of Reframe, which is actually an Interreg project. So it's a transnational learning project. So within Europe, there are a lot of Interreg projects, and this one is on building a food framework. So we've been working with organizations from Sweden, Denmark, Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. Actually for 5 years, so that is really amazing. This Thursday we have our final conference, so I will put in a link later on where you can see what is on the program, and there you actually will see a lot of our, well, I wouldn't say best results, it's always hard to say what is best, but some learning from our project. So important for us was actually also to this learning factor, the sharing. How is it done in Sweden compared to Belgium, the Netherlands? What can we learn from each other? So maybe that's good to know the context of a project like this. Then we have a lot of best practices that we shared. Maybe a good example, what actually was well received by all partners is, for example, in Sweden, the Reiko rings, which is actually came from Finland, but it's really doing very well in Sweden, where the farmers come to a parking lot or an open central place, and consumers can actually beforehand order via Facebook, very easy system, and they just sort of one-to-one communicate with the farmers, then go to the parking lot and collect the food. And you can imagine in Corona times, this was really booming. It was even, growing a lot. But at the same time, I think for Reframe, the most important is this short supply chain and changing to more sustainable goals. So we also tried to link it with farm to fork strategy, the sustainability goals. So not just looking at the short supply chain as such, but also, okay, but what is happening there? Which actors are important to actually make it more sustainable? So that is actually what we did the last 2 years, I would say. So the first 3 years was very much on the actors in the supply chain to bring them around the table, which is in some countries wasn't really there. So this is a big step. So for example, in Groningen, where I'm based, where the project in the Netherlands took place, this is a huge difference. They have all these actors around the table and they discuss with each other any initiative, but also problems they encounter and try to solve it together. I mean, this is really a big step. So yeah, let me keep it to that. Otherwise, I keep talking the whole setting here. So
it's very interesting. Thank you. Yeah, I think you partly said it. It is. My question would be: is it applicable all over Europe, or your findings? Are they? Can they be applied in every country, or are there limitations?
Yeah, I would say definitely parts of it. But of course, what we noticed, for example, there was this local market that you have in Flanders, maybe Wannes knows all about it, which is like on a Friday afternoon, combined with having a drink later on in the market. At the market you meet your farmers. So it's really a local market with the farmers offering their products, but also combined with having a drink, having a chat at the end of the week. Children plays. So it's really sort of a going out thing as well, and be in contact with the farmers. But we were thinking of how could we do this in Groningen, in northern Netherlands, and we said that, but you know, we have to do it in a different place, different day, because people won't do it that way. So I would say a lot of the elements, like how to bring farmers in contact with consumers, could, you know, you could share that. It's the same with the supermarkets. We've had a lot of discussions on how to bring local foods into the supermarkets. So the steps you take and the lessons learned, you can share those and applicable in the whole of Europe, I would say. But how you do it exactly, and what is your relationship with that supermarket? Or so again, Sweden managed in Corona time to actually bring in their local food from the region into the Lidl supermarkets. They had a whole section where they had space for that, and it was just, you know, it's growing, but it's also actually the steps to do it, to get there, that is the sharing that we are interested in.
Thank you very much. I think it's now Wannes' turn. If you would like to start your presentation, I would really like to see it.
Yes, yeah, Roos, it was very interesting as well what you told us, especially the parking lot situation. It's a bit what we do. So I have a presentation here. All right. And like Ribana told us already, in terms of our brand name, in fact, like in Holland and Belgium, we're called Boeren en Buren. In French, and it's La Ruche qui dévie, but in German, it's Marktschwimmer. In Italian, it's L'Arviare che dice. In Spain, it's La Colmena che dice. So here you have it. To start, why did we start? So 10 years ago, it was in France. Just because like the crisis we all now know, we're talking about the agricultural crisis. And in fact, we wanted to have a model that that would be like a difference to the supermarket model. So really to imply the short supply chain to become the norm. So in 2014, we started in the other countries that I just named. So here maybe a little bit, how do we work? In general, we have like one person who says, hey, I want to open an assembly. So this person is called the host. And in fact, he is the person, or she is the person whom assemblies all the producers, all the local producers, and have them on our website, on our platform. So here we are to help them, the hosts, to search for members. And as soon as the host has the producers and the consumers, so the members, we can start every week. So like Roos said, we can have it on a parking lot. In Corona times, it was a lot on a parking lot or on somebody's driveway, or our hosts were very creative, also on an abandoned club, for example. So it was really nice to see all the creativity there. So every week the host launches a sale, and people can just buy online 2 days before, and then on the day of the assembly, they can get their products and talk with the producers, because like you said, Roos, it's also very important, we think, to have the direct contact between the consumer, between the member and the producer. So this is for the host and the member side. And then for the producer, for him, it's important to first register on our platform, on our website. And then our strength is our platform, of course. So there, everything is, they can set up their product catalog. And one of the most important things for us is that they can set their own prices. So it's entirely up to them. Then the host invites the producer to the sales. So everything then runs automatically. The producer gets his tickets, prepares everything he needs to prepare, and then on the day of the assembly, he or she comes to the assembly to deliver the products to get collected. Then just our business model, very short. So the members, so they buy the local products at a price the producer sets, and 80% goes directly to the selling price of the producers. There we have the 11%, 11.65 that goes to the La Ruche Mama, we call it. So like to us, to our fees, to the platform, to the marketing costs as well, to the communication costs. And then also the host receives a remuneration as well, because it's him or her that really finds the producers, because we're like decentralized. So it's very important they look for the producers. They have a good contact with the producers as well. So we can all be sure of the quality therefore. So I think this summarized very briefly our business model and our business in general.
Thank you. Just a few questions. What would be local for you?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Well, we see local, because local in Belgium is different than local in France, for example. We see in our businesses that that the products come for, yeah, like in France, like 80 kilometers is really good in France. And we see that as a maximum, in fact. But like in Belgium, we're very proud to say that all our products have, in general, 28 kilometers between like the producer and our assembly. So yeah, we're very proud of that. But the most important thing stays the short supply chain, of course.
And what is about local processing? Is it also a part of your program?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So something I didn't tell you. So we have, of course, the vegetables that are very important for us, the seasonal vegetables. But yeah, in Belgium, we don't have always the best vegetables in winter and stuff like this. That's why we try to diversify as well with other products, other local products. So we have beers, we have meat, we have, and yes, we have like also chocolate, for example, because there's our vision is that it has to have an added value. So if the chocolate beans are here, it has to be an artisanal product, in fact, from a local chocolate maker, for example. If that's an answer to your question.
Yeah, thank you. And I think your approach is very much linked to digital technologies. So how will you reach out to those people that are not digital natives?
Yes, it's true. We saw this 10 years ago already that it would be the future to really have the digital there. So one thing is we try to make it as easy as possible for a member. So we have so you can all go to the website. I will post it later. It's really easy. You just find your city. You click on an assembly in your neighborhood. You fill your basket and you go you pay, and then you get a mail where you have to be. So we try to make it as low-key as possible. And then, of course, we have our help desk. We have our hosts that are really helpful to, for example, if we have some elderly people, then they just can come to an assembly and then the host will help them.
Thank you so much. Yeah, now I would like to know, Johanna, what exactly is your field of work, and yeah, how are you contributing to a more sustainable and regional food system within your work?
Yes, thank you. So as you already said in the introduction, I'm working for the Association of Organic Food Processors. We are an, as it says, processing member-based association. We're based in Germany, but we don't only have German members, but members from, I would say, the German-speaking countries mostly, or those who are close to Germany. And the idea, our association was founded around about 20 years ago. The idea behind it was to look with an holistic approach to define what actually is an organic or ecological company. So those were all food processors. It started with 5. Now we have 125 members, companies who were processing organic products, organic food products, but they said they don't define themselves as being organic simply by putting organic raw materials together and selling it as an organic food, but they want to think further and think about what does it mean to be an organic company or an ecological company with an holistic approach. And so that's what we came from. And of course, the topic of regional networks always comes with the topic in general. The association is, we have 125 members from really, really small, very locally centralized bakeries, for example, to very big companies. So it's very diverse from the size of the company, from the food products they process. But that's actually what makes it very interesting. The association is focusing a lot on supporting each other, talking to each other about the topics which all of them face and which all of them want to talk about, and to find a way to change our food system into a more sustainable one. And of course, as I said before, on the topic of regional networks and regional resources is always part of it. And especially as it's an organic association, and I guess most of you know that organic does not necessarily always mean that it's from the region. And we do have that topic of how do we get more organic raw materials for organic products. This, of course, is something we are talking about quite a lot.
Yeah, that would have been my next question about the resources that are traded on the global market, even in organic. So right now it is often not possible to get produce from, for example, from Germany, even though it is produced normally here, but there is so much demand. So is it actually attractive for retailers to rely on regional resources, even though it can be, or it is more available on the global market and maybe cheaper?
I think the last word you said is the important one. It's cheaper. I think the thing about regional networks or regional raw materials also is that the organic industry, or the organic sector in general, has been growing so rapidly in the past years. I mean, it has. If you look at the past years, we have been growing at least 10% every year. You can ignore the financial crises we had at the time. It didn't affect organic at all. It was growing really fast, and so the demand for organic products grew a lot, but the farming side didn't really or wasn't really able to achieve the same growing. And the problem is that I'm always trying to say you can't really change that global food system into a regional system with simply pushing one button. You have like many factors that play a role, and a few of them have already been mentioned here. It's all about bureaucracy. It's about the structures we have, the infrastructure, but also the political structures we have. It's about diversification. It's about education, and it's about appreciation of food. It's about culture, and it's a lot about prices. And I would say it is definitely attractive for retailers, also for processors to rely on regional resources if they could, because I'm pretty sure most of them would like to, especially in the organic sector. We still have quite a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises who are working regionally, but they do it, they need to put a lot of effort in it, I would say, to achieve their consumers or the customers being willing to pay the price for it, because the way our economic system, also especially our food system, is structured at the moment, simply does not give you the room or the option for the price you would need to pay and the price you have and the true cost of the food product if it would be sourced regionally. But the willingness, I would say, is definitely there. And but as I said, it's not something you can change by simply pushing one button. There are so many different things that need to be tackled to achieve this change, I would say, to a more regional food system. Also in organic.
Thank you. And do you have already some practical examples how food processors can be better involved in the regional value chain? Do they have approaches how to ask for direct production or something like that?
Yeah, sure. I have actually quite a lot of companies in mind because, as I said, in our membership, we have a few members who already are very locally based and will also source very locally. Especially, I would say, from the context of cereal processing companies, but also dairy or meat processing companies. And I would say what they all have in common is that they are all very transparent. They educate quite a lot, so they offer a lot of possibilities to know, to learn what they are doing, to offer consumers to come and look at their production sites, to bring people into their companies. They try to combine culture with food. They try to bring back the knowledge about that our food, how it's produced, how it's processed, actually has something to do with culture a lot. I mean, in Germany, of course, if we talk about bread, for example, that of course has a lot to do with culture, or beer brewing as well, of course. They have very close and very long-lasting relationships with their farmers, and of course that all has its price, and you need to be in your whole, I would say, company structure and the aim of your company. You cannot only look at economical factors. They are all looking at economical sufficiency factors and also social factors. So they try to combine all three, because if you have a company simply looking at the economics, you will not make that work, I would say. So what they all have in common is that they are willing to put that effort into educating the people around them, trying to bring people back to understanding where food comes from, how it is farmed, how it is grown, how it is processed, especially as that, and also to increase this appreciation about food, which I feel that we have lost quite a lot in the past years. So I would say that's like one way to go, and that's what they all have in common. And as they all do it, they are all very successful in it. So if you want to, it's possible.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we can make a link to Tom there because you talked about the awareness and education. And Tom, how did you achieve, or how did you convince people to change their shopping behavior and no longer buy at Tesco, for example, and instead become a CSA member? What did you set up to bring them to you?
Well, I'd say for us on the sort of scale and working locally how we are, the most effective thing is just word of mouth. So I think initially starting up, it's just like, who are your friends, who are your family, who's the school community your children are at? You know, it's building basically links with people you know. And then from that, we've sort of joined up with local environmental organizations to kind of tap into their resources of people. But I would say, as far as changing people's behavior, I think that's kind of, it feels to me like that's changing already in a way, naturally. I know the whole COVID epidemic has had a huge impact for us, and we've now got so much demand, and people just recognize the value of local food much more than they have done before. I think that hopefully I imagine that's probably the same across globally, not just, but it seems like people really value local food resources even more. We use social media a lot to highlight what we're doing. So I think, we kind of, I guess we paint a very sunny picture of what we do. And so a lot of people kind of follow what we do on Facebook and Instagram. And I think it is very attractive, particularly to so many people who are like computer bound and office bound. I think actually to have a connection to the kind of work we're doing is really valuable for people. So I'd say that's one way. And I think health, people are just becoming much more aware of nutritional content of food and how it affects their health. And yeah, just communities wanting to feel secure and empowered. I think the whole thing of community food security is just becoming more real for people. And sadly, I mean, Brexit is in no way a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But one thing that has come out of it for us is actually, again, it's really shaken people's security, food security in the UK. And I know already, like, I've got a friend who grows flowers, and she's grown flowers for many years. And this is the first year that suddenly all the Dutch imports are actually a lot more than she can grow them on a small scale, and she can make a really good living this year. I haven't seen yet exactly how food is affected, but the flower industry, there's been a really big impact. So again, it seems like it's kind of happening for good or for bad.
Thank you. Wannes, I would like to know how your members react to this new relation with farmers that they have, because I imagine many people are living in more urban surroundings and are probably not so much in contact with farming before.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the relationships between the farmers and the members. Because we are such an open network, we see a lot of producers there and members that have questions for those producers. So that can be something like, hey, why do you still use packaging, for example? And like this, we see like farmers like changing their minds. So this is like one example of the relationship, like the strict relationship. But then we also see like fun things happening because it's also between farmers meeting each other. And I think this is important as well, that they can talk with each other. And yeah, just something this summer, a producer was asked to be a bridesmaid of the local host because they developed such a good relationship between them. So such little nice things is yeah, it's what we do it for, I think.
Thank you. I think we have a little gap in the supply of regional vegetables that are often now available in small quantities in direct marketing. But this question goes to Roos. The regional products have become more popular, but still they remain often specialities and with low consumption rates. So I mean, everything that is not vegetable. How can we develop a more balanced local food supply? Do you have any ideas or findings?
Then first, please explain to me what you mean with this gap. You say there's a gap.
I just meant that there are many products that are also produced locally that are not as much sold as the vegetable.
Oh,
In my perception, probably this is not even right. Yeah, tell me your view.
yeah, I'm not sure if that is, maybe it's what we think of the vegetables, but what I liked also looking at Reframe in the 5 years is that, for example, they brought back some old grains in this region, for example, the one in Groningen. The grains that actually used to grow here very well because of the soil. So this is also a bit of education, as the others have been talking about, like this specific grain, why was it there for decades, and now we are all producing only one type of grain for the bread and whatever. So they're trying to bring back different type of grains, and now also start making local beer out of it. And beer is of course also a way to involve other maybe groups of people, I don't know, but with other interests than the vegetables that you were talking about. So I think for the marketing, it's also a very good way via the beer to talk about the grain, to talk about the soil. And I really liked the Chapman report, which was published some time ago, a couple of weeks ago, which was linking it with biodiversity. And I see that is maybe what Tom is also saying, that there is some change, that people are more aware. The bees, the birds, oh yeah, they have to do with biodiversity. Oh, and our food system is actually having a huge impact on that. So what could we do? So it's a bit of learning in there as well. And I'm very happy to hear from the other panelists about the education, but I think that's really so important that we can influence our young people. So within Reframe, we worked a lot with students, let them do research, also in the different Reframe regions, so more transnational research, but also they had to do a campaign, how to inform, but also to maybe change a little bit the behavior of young people and the students that they are themselves. And they really did a great job there. So it's not only social media, they try to do different things, also to say positive words about it, so that it's not only you doing it because something bad is happening like climate change, but bring a positive message for the small steps that you can do as a young person that actually really have impact and will help. I think that is what came out of that, help the regional SMEs, as you said before. And that also changed in Corona times, because people were more aware of, oh, maybe we should support our regional businesses more, because they are having a hard time. So that you saw Swift going to more economic reasons, but maybe in a positive way, which I also liked. So for products other than vegetables, I think there are definitely possibilities that are actually coming up more and more as well.
Thank you. I think there's a comment from the audience coming in. I would like to ask Karl Friedrich if you would like to share your thoughts with us. I can give you the permission. Would you like to raise your hand? Okay, so you're online now.
Okay, thank you. As I wrote in the chat, we are currently trying to identify the bottlenecks. We are the people interested in establishing some sort of local food council or Ernährungsrat in Germany. So one thing which can be said right now, that there's a problem with highly qualified staff in terms of experienced people. Just to give an example, there is an organic gardener who could sell almost twice as much as he actually can, but he's the only one who knows all the tricks to grow organic vegetables. And even though we are just 30 kilometers away from Witzenhausen and 20 kilometers from Göttingen, so there should be some sort of people from these universities or whatsoever, also vocational education. And the second issue is the lack of regional primary processors. We mean that slaughterhouses, dairy plants, mills, etc. They had a very hard time to save the slaughterhouse in Heiligenstadt, 30 kilometers from Göttingen. Eventually, they managed the sort of cooperatives of artisanal butchers managed to do this so far, but for milk you have to, and if you don't process it yourself, you have to have it transported at least much more than 100 kilometers. And this is a real major bottleneck, also in terms of agriculture in general, because it's also a bottleneck in diversifying agricultural crops. So what's the point in growing legumes and things if you have nobody in the neighborhood to turn them into a good product? So this is what we are working on, how to deal with this situation, but it's really difficult. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this is a good question. So how do we set up these structures that the whole supply chain is actually working, yeah, from the production to the table? Johanna and Roos, maybe, yeah, Johanna, okay.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I was thinking about the same topic when like preparing mentally for today, because also if we look at the farm to fork strategy, of course they talk about the topic as well, and they want short supply chains, and also the new organic regulation, which will come into force next year, says the same. But I have to be a little bit provocative here, because it's not as easy as the farm to fork strategy may sound as it could be, because it does not, even I would say, even the farm to fork strategy doesn't really tackle the problems we have in the context, because I would say our political structures are supporting large scale structures. They are not supporting small, medium-sized structures. It's a topic of over bureaucratization. It's a topic of food safety, consumer protection, which also aims at large scale structures, and which all led to the situation which Friedrich Karl just talked about, that all these smaller, especially primary processes had to shut down because it wasn't really economically or in any way feasible for them to compete. They didn't have any chances for that. And for regional networks, we do need small and medium-sized enterprises, and we do need them along the whole supply chain, not just on the farming side. Otherwise, it simply won't work as just described. But as long as we have the situation that a huge company like Amazon, for example, does not pay any taxes, whereas like the small businessman or small businesswoman has nothing left after paying their taxes, of course we won't change the situation. And this is a political situation, so this is something that the politics have to change, and I think we need to address it. I feel like this is always the topic that nobody likes to talk about, of course, because it's not nice to talk about it, but there is a huge problem there in our political structures, because they support large scales. They don't really make it easy for small or medium-sized scales. So and that's also not completely looked at by the farm to fork strategy, I would say. And it's also, yeah, we did already talk about the educational part. It's the education of the consumer on the one hand about food in general and about farming in general, but it's also, as Friedrich Karl just pointed out, the education of qualified staff on the whole chain. So also on the farming side, but also on the processing side. And this is also something that needs to, yeah, or is connected, I would say, very closely to the appreciation of the food in general, but also to the appreciation of the job that is behind it. So on the appreciation of the farmer, the appreciation of the miller, the appreciation of the one working in a slaughterhouse, or the one making sausages, or the baker. So to appreciate what they are doing actually more, and that it's very closely linked to the food we are consuming. So as long as we keep having this idea of having a nutrition based on industrialized or industrially designed food products with flavorings and additives, of course, we will not really regain, or consumers can't really regain an understanding of true prices of food and what food actually looks like and tastes like. And that's, I would say, those are many topics, of course, I talked about it, but yeah, on a very large scale. Like there's a very long to-do list on very different levels that we have to talk about. We can't really take the farm to fork strategy and right into it. Let's go change back from globalization back to regionalization, and everything is solved.
Thank you very much. Roos, you would like to add something?
Yeah, I fully agree with Johanna when we look at the global scale and the capitalist way of our economic systems, and actually even with a farm to fork strategy and the biodiversity strategy from the EU, they are now, you know, as we speak, deciding about a CAP agricultural policy, which is also again stimulating large-scale production. That doesn't mean that we should only look at small-scale production, I think. But to come back to Friedrich Karl's question, there is some in-between way that we tried out here in the north of the Netherlands, which was for the meat farmers, the cattle farmers. They sort of made a food agreement, so they're bringing from different farms, different cattle, but to one butcher. And so it was more a regional cooperation to make sure that they can still deliver. And that maybe is also the link to the supermarkets that we talked about before, but also, for example, hospitals. We have a huge hospital in this area. How to make sure that with the procurement, they are also looking at the regional producers and farmers, and that could really give a boost within, you know, linking the small scale with maybe the larger demand. And that could be a possibility. We've taken steps in that. I also agree with Johanna, there's so many levels and logistics, and so much to think about, that it's small steps and usually 2 steps ahead and 1 step back, but still I think we should work on all those levels, as you say, Johanna. So, and have good examples like Wannes and Tom also showed, that spreading the word, yeah, we have to take those steps anyway.
Thank you very much. There's another question on yeah, the word sustainable. So how do you take into account that local production do not automatically mean that all the products are produced in a sustainable way? So also intensive agriculture nearby is local food production. What would you respond? Or yeah, what are your thoughts about yeah, taking care that the word local is not too much used in a wrong way? Or yeah, maybe we can also take it as a comment. I don't know if you would like to add something. Yeah, Johanna.
I would totally agree. I would say you can do very good things globally and you can do very stupid things locally. So just because something is local doesn't necessarily mean that it's sustainable, and just because something is global doesn't necessarily mean it's unsustainable. So I would say it's with everything. It's yeah. If you look at the, like, depends a bit on the definition of sustainable you have, but I would say sustainability is also always based on these 3 pillars of an economic sustainability, ecological sustainability, and social sustainability. And if you look at these 3, they all have to be looked at equally. Then you can do sustainable things globally and sustainable things locally. And like our credo always is, be regional where possible, be national where needed, and be global when there is no other option. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do everything local, because sometimes, of course, there are things that simply aren't there in the local area and which wouldn't necessarily make any sense to have them in the local area, or it's not even possible. And then there are the situations that we have at the moment that we import, of course, a lot of things from a global market, although we could, without any problem, source them locally. So I would say the local production as well as the global production has always have to look at those 3 pillars and not only at one to be really sustainable.
Thank you. I think there's another question also on this topic of perception of sustainability from Gina. If you would like to speak directly, would you raise your hand, please? Okay, this is not the case, or yeah. So yeah, I think I cannot really grab your thoughts from this comment. So if you would like to explain it to us, would be great. The next question would be more about how could you set up a local food system which is sustainable and fair if we are entangled in global, national, and local inequalities of gender, race, ethnicity, class. So this is very big, and yeah, these are also present at the local level. So this person is criticizing the romantic narratives of the local term. So yeah, it's a question about image. Maybe Wannes, would you like to answer to this?
Yes, well, we saw the last months, in fact, the local, we used to have the greenwashing, and now it's the local washing, and it's true, we see it everywhere. And that's why I pointed out, like, local for me, I said, yeah, it's 28 kilometers, but for us, it's also at least even important, the short supply chain, which is not by definition local, and the other way around. So this is also something. But yes, I totally agree that the word, I think we all agree that the word local is misused a lot in marketing terms. Everywhere I go, the supermarkets, it's all local. It's all from the local farmer, and that's a bit of pity.
Tom, you would like to make a point?
Yeah, it was just to answer really to Federico, and I see that Magdalena has also asked more about the same question Federico's sort of posing. And I think basically my feeling is that, you know, we can kind of choose our battles, that, you know, there's all sorts of issues and problems. There's so many issues to face. And actually, I think it can be overwhelming to try and to battle against all of them. And I think we have to choose the areas we can actually personally deal with and feel like we're actually getting somewhere with. I'd say it is really interesting that something Magdalena linked to that asks about, you know, how we make sort of the kind of food systems we're talking about more accessible to people on low incomes. Like the area I live is very split between east and west, and on the east side of Swansea is very poor quality housing, very low income. Most people are unemployed. People live in a very sort of deserted landscape with very little cover, and they eat really poor quality food. You know, people are generally just very unhealthy in those environments. And I think there's parts of South Wales that are some of like probably the poorest nutritional families within all of Europe, I'd say. It has been in the past, and I'd say that's still quite the case. And we're trying to actually work with that, and we're currently trying to set up a couple of CSAs in those areas. But yeah, it's a big issue, and I think it's all tied up with the politics of it as well. So I think we have to approach it from both a practical stance, actually people like us going and setting up small local projects and exploring how we can engage those communities, but also it has to come from the top down as well, from political intervention.
Thank you. We had a discussion on biodistricts this afternoon, and my question now would be what kind of cooperation with the non-food sector could foster the impact of local food supply, for example, education, tourism, social work, or cultural events? What are your experiences with this to overcome also these inequities?
Could you repeat that actually, please?
Sorry. Yeah, it's about what kind of cooperations with the non-food sector could foster the impact of local food, like tourism or culture. Or I think, Tom, you have quite a few examples how you were integrating people in your system.
Yeah. We're sort of really seeking to try and engage different groups, because we recognize that the kind of thing we're doing, you know, it's very white middle class people with a bit of money who generally get involved in CSA. So we're sort of reaching out, and all the schools we work with. So we kind of recognize that, you know, if we can get to kids when they're very young and kind of educate them about the benefits of eating seasonal local food. So we're specifically working with like the poorest schools in our area, which we can also get funding for because of where they are. So it's kind of, it works for us. So that's one aim, I think, is to link in with schools. I think what we'd love to do is help someone set up a food system around a school. So one of those local schools can become completely self-sufficient and have a link to lots of local farmers. So it's not just all government supplied food to their canteen. And then hospitals. So we're also linking with well, the university and the hospital. The hospital we've actually got quite far with now, our local hospital, which has about 200, 300 beds. So it's quite a big setup. They've actually given land to a project now. So they've basically given enough land that in theory, we could grow all the food for that hospital, but it's more likely that we're going to grow food for the surrounding community to that hospital, but engage the hospital in the kind of discussion of local food. So yeah, there's different, I suppose, yeah, universities, schools, those are ways in for sure.
Thank you. Roos, would you like to add on this?
Yeah, well, I was just triggered by your question. We have several activities going on in the city of Groningen, actually. One of them is from a social entrepreneur. So it's in the middle of a quarter with a lot of people that would not be the one that we talked about, the narrative, the romantic narrative, and the elite that some of the people in the audience, the attendees, are talking about. And so the city of Groningen has actually just launched what they call the agenda for food policy, which is really for the city, and the city of Groningen has a lot of deprived areas. So one of them is having this big garden in the middle of the city, connected with a restaurant, and in the restaurant they have they work with immigrants, with people that have been out of work for a long time. They also cooperate with local farmers when we had really a problem with the food bank, that there were in Corona time more people asking food from the food bank. So they're trying to connect that as well. And what I really liked was an activity. They made a movie with the children from that area. They were just cooking and learning about the food they were cooking with, and so try to maybe teach in a nice way that the vegetables that were actually growing in their area, in that suburb, that they could actually cook very nice food with it. And of course they did it, not the children alone, they actually try to have the parents involved, because so it's more from the children to the parents. And it okay, it's small things maybe, but I think it worked, and it was reframe money to support making this movie. So I think, you know, to use small amounts of money to actually start projects like this, support initiatives that are already there, might, you know, increase the knowledge around it, but also more. There are now plans for a farm, for example, also in the city, where people could just come and pick their own food and work a bit in the garden. So it's different small projects, but I hope they actually help for the integration and the learning and the teaching there.
Thank you. Okay, Johanna, please.
Yes, I was when you asked the question, I was thinking about a small oil mill. I know here in Germany, in Offenburg, they are, and they have a wonderful way of bringing people back to the knowledge about oil, because they say, you know, we have so many food products which have a long history, which have a long tradition, which have a culture behind it, and oil, of course, is one of them, for example. And they have so they are very transparent, so you can, they're in the middle of the city, you can walk by and look into the oil production, into the oil mill, you can see everything. And what they do very regularly is they combine it with other cultural events, so with music or with readings of books. And they try to combine it with always with a special product of them. So like if they have an oil coming from Morocco, for example, they try to give a short introduction about the oil, where it's coming from, what the meaning of it is or was in history also today. And then they combine it, for example, with a musical group from Morocco or anything. So they try to bring people back to the understanding, also the cultural understanding and the combination of different cultural things which have always been linked at some point. And they say the people love it. So they are always fully booked. They are not huge. They have just, I think they can get maybe 35 to 40 people into the room. That's it. So they're a really small company, but the consumers, the people, or the prosumers, I would even say, they love to come there and to understand and to get a connection again to the food they are consuming. And then, of course, when they understand it and when they have a story behind it and know where it's coming from, also know where the tradition and the culture behind it is coming from, they are also very willing to pay the price, the true price, which it is actually worth. So when I met this company, I was really happy, because there was such an enrichment for my own life to see what they do and how their system is working. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think there was another nice discussion going on in the Q&A tool about economy for common good. And I would like to ask Martin, if you would like to speak up and to explain to us or to ask a question, and then I would ask you to raise your hand. Okay. So please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Martin speaking. I'm not sure if I've really got a question. I have more a comment than a question, I would say. Already in the presentation before, or discussion before, I outlined the point. Johanna, you mentioned that the costs are not the point, but I'm quite sure at the very end we have to make sure that the external costs are involved in the prices, and then we really find the right price for the products, which are they really worth at the very end. And this is why I always ask again, to my point of view, to get a reasonable price for the goods, we need a tax system which supports companies who have a social economic production, and all other companies who do behave differently, they should pay a real price for their product. So they should have an added tax on their products, because they just destroy maybe our nature, or just they pay very low wages to have a very low price for the product, and at the very end they are the most competitive on the market. So to my point of view, a very important topic is that we find an economic system which at least gives a same price for the same product, and not having even a cheaper price for the environmental and social poor product at the very end. And this is what we face at the moment, to my point of view. And there is a system for that, which is the economy for common good. There is already a mechanism which asks companies to do an according balance, which makes transparent how they go on with the resources, how they treat their workers, and then how their prices are to make sure that at the very end the consumer could see what is the real price, or what is the real effect of the product I'm consuming. Because so far, when I'm even in a bio supermarket or organic supermarket, even here you have meanwhile quite a difference between organic and organic. Because if you have a farm where you have also the big monoculture growing, of course this is cheaper than when you have a really small plots, which is much better for the biodiversity. And even here you should have the chance as a consumer to know which is the better product at the very end. But so far, I'm as a consumer, I don't have any chance to really know what's behind it. And so, of course, it's quite important that we have a change in the economic system, that all customers, all consumers are at least in the position to know what they are really buying.
Thank you very much, Martin. Yeah. I think, yeah, this is very much linked to the transparency of our products. And yeah, what would you like to say about that, about labeling, or about the impact of different production ways? Yeah, Johanna, please.
I mean, what Martin is referring to is, I absolutely agree. I mean, he's referring to the system we call true cost accounting, which I think our association has been lobbying for since forever, I think. And I realized that the topic is becoming more and more into the public eye as well, which is really good, because it is a problem. I always say it's as long as you are able to sell a product which has been sourced at one continent, then shipped to another continent to be processed, and then shipped to a third continent to be packaged, and then sold here, as long as that product is still cheaper than the one sourced and processed regionally, then we have a problem, because it cannot in no way be cheaper and also in their true price. So that's exactly what Martin is referring to, because there are so many external costs which are not balanced into the price of the product in the end. And that's of course something which has to come from a political system or economic political system in general. I see that there's not really much going on there, or the progress is very, very slowly. What I do realize at the moment, talking to our companies or our members, is that the financial system in the background is looking more and more at the true cost accounting system. So if you as a company need to invest or want to invest and need money from a bank, there are quite a few banks at the moment that begin to ask for a true cost accounting system from your company for all your products. And they tend to look more to those companies which calculate all those costs into it. So I hope that maybe if our politics aren't really able to find a good regulation for that, maybe the financial sector in the end will, because all of them are somehow in need of money at some point. But it definitely is something. And what Martin also said concerning the organic products, that's of course the gap we have between our, I would say, intrinsic understanding of what organic is and organic means, and also what the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements, so IFOAM, defines as organic. We have those 4 principles of organic defined, and that does not necessarily mean the same as what is written in the organic regulation here in the EU. So what you can or have to fulfill to sell a product as organic. And that's of course why there are differences between the organic products you can buy, which, as Martin very correctly pointed out, probably most of the consumers don't know. And that's a problem, I would say, because of course, as bigger as organic is becoming, and as more companies who also begin processing organic, maybe simply due to economical reasons, because it's economically interesting to sell an organic product, of course, the bigger those differences can be. So that's really something we also as organic sector have to look at very carefully, and have to be very honest and transparent about, because it's, as all the other topics that we've already talked about, something that's not good to simply ignore. But I think those problems are always only solved if you simply openly speak about them and try to face them together.
Thank you very much. There was also a question about the logistics of regional products, because as you said, often it is more cheap or less expensive to bring products to different points in the world to let them process. But on the other hand, it is expensive to organize the local distribution system. So what are your answers to this local distribution? Roos, please.
Yeah, I was, well, what is the right word? I found it peculiar to see the differences between the countries as well. Like in Sweden, a lot of farmers have their own trucks and they're used to drive quite distances to bring their products somewhere else. While in the Netherlands, and I believe also in Germany and Belgium, is dependency on others coming to collect the products, and then they are brought together and then they're processed further. So we actually had a whole discussion about its logistics and of course the costs of the logistics and how to do this smart and sustainable, I think, are the two words that we talked about. So I'm really happy if one of the other panelists could to shine a light on that. They have a solution or some good ideas on that.
Any experiences or ideas, future visions?
I think a lot of it's already been discussed. Yeah, I don't know what to add really, apart from what's been discussed. I think I was thinking about, I mean, it is a huge, the cost implication is a huge block, and some kind of like social environmental accounting for produce would definitely be a way forward. I think it's a big sort of complex system, but it would, you know, that would be a really good way to go. And apart from that, I think it's basically highlighting the benefits of small scale local production or medium scale production to people. So basically the producers actually choose themselves that that's a really worthwhile route. But yeah, I think a lot of it we've kind of covered already.
Yeah, maybe I can speak about the food assembly here. So in general, so the producers deliver to the assemblies, but something to take in mind is that they can set also in terms of profitability, they can set a minimum amount of orders. So from the amount they're profitable, the sales continues. And also we see in the network a lot of producers work together. It's not, and especially not now, we don't have a lot of producers on site. Not all of them. It's in theory. We try to have at least of every like the vegetable farmer, like someone for the meat. We try to have like one person, and then the other persons they if they're neighbors, for example, they live close by, they have some arrangements with the host as well. So yeah, we see it has to be effective as possible, because if it's only to deliver like the eggs, for example, it's not worthwhile. So this is an interesting question, but like the producers with the host, they discuss the best options. And then of course we have like in the half, that's something I didn't mention before, half of our assemblies also do home delivery. And sometimes this is also a producer that does it, that lives in the neighborhood. But so because we're decentralized, it's mostly something the host discuss with the producers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Could I add something to what Wannes is just saying? I was just thinking of the old-fashioned market that we only have a few farmers. This is a local market in the city, so they bring their products to a lot of people that just come by bike or walking to the place, because actually the city of Groningen is impossible to go into by car. That's been arranged years ago, no cars in the city. So in that case, it's already quite low, using only a few trucks to get in there and to sell to a lot of people, which helps. But also what Wannes was saying about the, bringing it at your door. If you can control it and if you have enough demand, then we have one company that is actually using the e-truck, try to keep their logistics as sustainable as possible and also tell the consumer about it. So maybe the consumer is paying a little bit extra for that, but it's calculated into the products that they are interested in anyway. So yeah, there are different approaches there, I think.
Thank you. I see we have several people that want to speak up. So I would say, Martin, you were first, then I would take Tom and then Marina from our audience. So Martin, it's your turn.
I just wanted to add, there is already a international movement for the economy for common good. They already have a ready model for such a balance, which shows the social or the sustainable behavior of the companies. So it's just a question of how many supporters we're going to gain to make this happen. That even taxes are paid by such a balance at the very end to make sure the prices for the good products are compatible with the others. That's just what I wanted to add. Thanks for the chance.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, so Tom, it's your turn.
Yeah, I was just going to add sort of very simply from the CSA point of view, as far as sort of distribution, because like obviously the way we work is on a very, very local basis. So within the UK, the CSA network is aiming to have like a CSA in every community effectively in the long run. And I'd say like it just means that our transport of vegetables is very little. It's like within half a mile of where our pickup hub is. But then we use that pickup hub for other producers to deliver. So we've got a number of meat producers who bring meat to that place. And we have a bakery there just next door to us, an organic bakery. And there's an egg producer who comes. So in effect, we become a hub for other people to bring their produce to. But with the CSA model, it's very much about keeping it very local as possible and supporting then other areas to set up their own CSAs. And also, I think like of our households picking up, of our 130 households who come to collect every week, a lot of them will share pickup. So a group of people from one area might pick up for 10 other people to reduce their travel as well.
Great, thank you. Marina, I would like to give you the permission now.
Okay, so I had a similar comment as Tom once, but also another one on a more regional level, because what Tom is explaining is on a local level. It's an initiative between farmers, and I understand organized by farmers themselves, that you are picking and sharing transport with others. I know that on a regional level in the south of Spain, in Andalusia, the local government, the regional government supported also the implementation of a logistic platform for organic food, as they were also trying to implement more organic food in school canteens. So the logistic was a tricky topic to deal with, and here it's the public funds that also supported the answer to this problem. So it's also something to see on how can public funds or public administration support that.
Thank you. Yeah, any ideas on that? I think it's what you just said, it's the public procurement that we have to address much more, or that needs to take the decision much more in this direction. What are your ideas how to approach them?
I could say also briefly as well, because yeah, this is something we've been looking at. I was interested, similar to down in Andalusia, in the French Basque country. I know of friends, children who there's a similar scheme there whereby they commit to buying organic produce from local farms. And it's something we sort of looked into here, and we've been talking to various schools and the hospital as to whether actually they could, whether they could have produce grown locally and supplied to them. And yeah, it's very complex, their system of food supply, but at the same time, it only seems to take a couple of people within each one of those systems to sort of push the boundaries a bit and try something out. And then I think that can become a really good example to other schools. Like we do have one primary school who have said that if we can get land, we'll sort of develop a project with you to grow all the food for the school, and we can use that as a basis for our children to learn as well. And they're a very mainstream small primary school. But I think if we could get one school like that to develop a project, then I think it could attract lots of other schools to do something similar.
Thank you. I think there are no more questions. Am I right? Okay. One is left here. So do you have innovation processes installed in order to further develop the sustainability of your project? I'm not sure who was asking this. Maybe if you could raise your hand and explain to us what exactly is your idea about this question, this would be great. Okay. I see you. Okay, so I give you now the permission.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yeah, it works.
Okay, I'm Renate from Austria, and I'm interested in whether you systematically further develop your idea or your project periodically, just review it, because to be sustainable isn't just, yes, now I have a sustainable project. It's something that always in some after a period of time should be looked at again, and you can have more ideas. For example, you take the 17 sustainability goals, look, where can I contribute further, and also you might like to try and find new people to work with you and to give more input and to get other sides of other views on your project, and yeah, just meet and bring people together around your project and ask them, what do you think of it? How, in your perspective, would you develop that further? Yeah, so do you have such a mechanism in place for you, or do you think it would be good? If
Thank
not,
you. I think there's an answer from Tom. Thank you, Renate.
Yeah, I would say in our case, it's basically just an ongoing discussion. I think the whole project is a whole sort of mixture of relationships between the growers, our group of directors, our volunteers, our trainees, the trainees that are finished with us, who we're then supporting to go on to do other projects. And then out of that, then we have these relationships with local schools, institutions, and we have like our national relationships with other CSAs and with the UK CSA network. So I feel like actually that innovation process is happening constantly. It's like there's constant discussion, there's constant forums and discussion. So I think it's almost like it feels like things are moving so quickly sometimes with innovation that it's a matter of just trying to keep up with the innovation and trying to make the best decisions. But we do, within that, we do consciously meet on a sort of annual basis to review exactly where we're at and actually whether we're at the place where we want to be and whether we're achieving the goals we want to achieve as a group. So I'd say, yeah, in our case, that is we are doing that.
Thank you. Okay, Roos, also you have an idea about that.
Yeah, no, I think Renata's question is very relevant, and thank you for that question, because I think inviting other stakeholders around the table than you're used to, or that it's easy, you're already finding each other. So in Reframe, we have it on 2 levels. The whole idea of being a transnational project, exchanging between regions in Europe, although we think we are very similar, but if you work on a project like this, you see all the differences. And each partner, again, asks their stakeholders to be part of the discussion. So we really, really learn from each other through the differences, actually, as well. But then on the regional level, for example, the network platform that has been set up in Reframe is actually actively inviting other stakeholders via already existing stakeholders to come around the table and talk. We do that in different ways, with the website, with the meetings that we have, the newsletters, the whatever, but very active, positive ways. So do you think of this or that topic, or are you busy with that, you know, to make it real concrete, and then make them come to our meetings, or, well, at the moment with COVID, our online meetings or meetings somewhere outside. We try to do this actively, which I think you should, because that's the way how to reach the, let's say, not so known stakeholders and to innovate your process. So thanks again for that question. It's really relevant.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the time is running out, and I would really like to thank you all for your contribution. I think we covered a large range of topics, and we are having so many examples how regional networks can work, actually. Also in our panels, within our panelists, you described so beautiful projects and good outcomes that can serve many other people. And yeah, I wish that you all will have a growing network in a sustainable way, and that we will all find more people that are interested in these networks and are supporting us. And yeah, I wish you a wonderful evening. Thank you to our audience for participating. This was a great session, and yeah, goodbye.
Thank you, Ribana. Thank you for hosting us.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.